What is up, duelists? Arts and Crafts here with your daily dose of Yu-Gi-Oh! GOAT format action. Today on the high-rated dueling book ladder, we've got Estuardo Escoto versus Test ID 69. As always, both players rated in the top 200 spots on the dueling book GOAT format ladder. Let's get started. Looks like Test ID is going to win the RPS, choose to go first. Rocking a 41 card deck, which is quite rare to see in GOAT format. Generally the sort of math that might justify a greater than 40 card deck that you see in like modern Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't really play out in GOAT format because there's a lot less like crazy combos that might necessitate weird ratios. But there are a few of those, right? There's always Rescue Cat and stuff like that that might want to play sometimes more than 40 cards. So little early clue here from Estuardo or for Estuardo that Test ID might be cooking up something a little bit unorthodox. And maybe we'll get to see some of that here with Test ID going first. Just going to start with the T-set pass, though. Pretty common opening in the format, so not too much revealed here just yet. Estuardo's got Thunder Dragon in their hand, so going to go grab a couple copies of that. Go up a card. And we're going to go ahead and normal summon Breaker the Magical Warrior. We'll see if Test ID, having not seen Breaker yet, oftentimes you will set a chainable card turn 1 to potentially play around this, so we'll see if they went ahead and did that. They are just going to hit a Royal Decree, though, so Test ID rocking a Decree, which is tells you a good amount. I mean, sometimes combo decks play this. It's most common in probably like GOAT control lists, I would say. But could be a lot of things here still. Decree is definitely an interesting card to see this early in the game, though. We're just going to go ahead and run into a face-down Gravekeeper Spy. Estuardo will take 400, and then Test ID will summon out another copy of that Spy here in defense position, while at the Breaker. So Breaker getting the +1 from killing the Decree, but not able to get really any action going offensively. Getting walled out by Spies, and it's likely that Test ID is running some sort of control deck with the Decree plus Spy combo coming in here. And Estuardo is just going to go ahead up. Probably did not want to reveal that Trapdoor Shoot. But you're about to use it anyway, so probably not the end of the world. A bunch of set cards here. Got to assume a lot of them are chainable. Test ID is going to go ahead, fire off that Trap Dust Shoot. We'll go see both players' hands here. We see Test ID is rocking definitely some sort of Chaos list. We see Sork in hand, their own Breaker. Double Mindcon main deck is not super common, honestly. If you see Mindcon main deck, it's generally just going to be the one. So playing 2, they seem to be heavily pre-sided against Chaos Turbo, which is, not a terrible call in the format by any means. And they've got a card destruction in hand, which is not doing too much when your opponent has double Thunder Dragon waiting to be cashed in. So kind of a dead card there. And we can see here, Estuardo, the last card in the hand is Magician of Faith, which so far does not have any targets, so it makes sense they didn't fire it off yet. Of course, one of these two back row could be a spell, though, so we'll see. If you're Estuardo here, I mean, Sork is nowhere near ready to be used, so you're probably just going to send back the Breaker to keep yours alive. Oh, we're sending back the Sork. Interesting choice, considering it's nowhere close to being live, like I just said. But maybe they have like a ring or something to just deal with the Breaker immediately. Or maybe like a Book of Moon, right? This could be an interesting play, right? If you want to make sure you get some value out of your hand, you could keep the Breaker, planning on booking it and running it over with your Breaker again next turn, so then you at least have a spell in the grave for Magician of Faith. I still think you probably just send back the Breaker anyway and like save the book and the Faith for something better down the line, but I could see that potentially being the play. Sork will get spun back here though, and you gotta presume. Okay, Test ID should be shuffling their deck. Looks like they chose not to. And Test ID, interestingly, keeping the Breaker in hand as well, which I'm not super sure about. You might as well just run it out here, because now part of it is like Estuardo played these first 2 cards, this back row, without knowing that Breaker was, you should have Breaker in mind when you're setting cards if you haven't seen it yet. But they didn't know 100% that their opponent had a Breaker, so it's like not guaranteed that these are Breaker proof sets, right? But now everything that they set from now on, unless they get into some mind games, will have Breaker in mind, so it's much less likely that they'll be setting stuff that Breaker can deal with. So I would probably run out the Breaker there. Test ID chooses to be a little bit more conservative there. Ideally, they shuffle their deck before drawing that Sork. But honestly, if you're Estuardo, you're probably fine if they don't shuffle their deck because, okay, there's the shuffle. But if they redrew the Sork, you're probably happy anyway because it's super dead. Estuardo, though, one unknown card in hand, a couple unknown back row. Still no way to get through these spies. Jar of Greed will dig them a little bit further. They're going to go ahead and set a monster, set a back row pass. Unlikely that that's that Magician of Faith, and I think we know it's not because Estuardo did not shuffle their hand. But Spy doing its job, walling out Estuardo here. Test ID. Gonna go summon that Breaker now. Now that there's a new back row. So if you are Test ID, you probably have to guess that this back row is something chainable. So if you're going to use the Breaker effect, you probably want to pop the old one because it's less likely to be breaker proof, like I was just saying. You also have to make the call. Do you want to run over the Breaker first with your 1900 attack Breaker, or would you rather just get the +1, pop the set, and then crash? We'll see what they choose to go for. I guess with a hand without a lot of action, I could see getting a little bit greedy here. And yeah, so they're going to go for the greedier play. So we're going to get Breaker attack into the Breaker, which ends up being a totally fine move because Estuardo had the ring set to deal with the Breaker anyway, which, like I was saying before, kind of validates why they sent back the Sork because they could pretty easily deal with the Breaker. Not sure if that's the right call because you could always just keep the dead Sork in hand and hold ring for something other than Breaker later on. But went for this play regardless. And Breaker will hit the grave, and both players will take the rare 1900 from a ring on Breaker, which you don't normally see. Generally, it's going to hit for 1600. It's basically this exact scenario where it will hit for 1900. But yeah, both players take 19. And then we're going to get main phase 2 Mindcon on the set, which Estuardo knew about double Mindcon in hand, so kind of an interesting player from Test ID. He is a Gravekeeper Spy, though, so Estuardo, knowing about double Mindcon and choosing to send out a set, maybe playing the mind game, like, hey, there's no way they try and Mindcon my set monster, because I know they have Mindcon, right? That's the kind of mind games you get into when there's dust shoots and Mindcons floating about, but Test ID getting value for one of their Mindcons here, at least. Able to steal their opponent's Gravekeeper Spy. And if you're running the third spy here, you get a good amount of value. No, just running the 2. But you do prevent Estuardo from summoning their other spy. Estuardo here, just going to send that spy to defense pass, and we've got double spy walls here. We're probably in for a long one here, folks. Hope you all, settle down, settle into your seats, because we might be in for a marathon here. Test ID, we've got Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, which is another good way. It's not going to get through the spy wall, but you can get some good value here by killing this Breaker, preventing chaos, banishing a light from grave. We'll see if the Kaiku attack can connect. It will. So Thunder Dragon will get banished. And a little small win there for Test ID, for sure. Estuardo has Jar of Greed again to draw a little bit further into the deck. Still relying on the spy to continue to wall out their opponent. Mindcon, of course, not dealing with it permanently like a Nobleman of Crossout would. We're just going to add a back row pass. Test ID looking for a way to continue to apply pressure with this Kaiku. Just going to pass, though. Spy's doing spy things. Estuardo, set a monster pass. Test ID, we're going to go double tribute. Oh, Dark Magician of Chaos. The just hard summoned with the double tribute. That's one of the things spies are good for. If you're running a deck, spies are great for a lot of things in this format, but especially if you are running a deck with tribute monsters, it's just free bodies essentially to use as tribute fodder. So bringing out this Demok here, only targeting grave for the enter the battlefield effect is this mind control, which you already have another one in hand, so not the most high impact Demok effect, but most importantly, it will beat over the spy and banish it, keeping it out of the grave. Probably not too big a deal with Kaiku on the board, but it does turn off potential like Night Assailant, grab a flip effect plays. So yeah, you're going to grab that Minecon. You probably just fire it off on this set monster right now. Choosing not to. Now, this is an interesting play. I mean, I know you have Mirror Force to deal with, but you probably just want to Minecon the set monster to clear the way for Kaiku to get a hit in and banish their other Dark. That seems like a good use of this. Essentially free Minecon, because once again, Estuardo knows about Minecons. So he's probably not setting something real into this. So it's not like you're going to get a ton of value out of a Minecon later, is kind of what I'm saying here. You might as well use it to get the Kaiku hit in, clear the way. And if the Estuardo did set a real set back-to-back into double Minecon, well, then that's just like a bonus, right? Spile get banished, and then choosing not to attack into the set monster is an interesting play. No back row here, but Demok does stick around. Estuardo, you're staring down a pretty big board. Jar Greed number 3 will resolve, so really thin in that deck. Into Upstart, man, we're just drawing everything. Into Set a Back Row Pass, did you find Mirror Force? Test ID here. Heavy Storm, in case there's Mirror Force in the back. And does hit the Mirror Force, wow. So Estuardo, Jar plus Upstart to dig for Mirror Force, finds it, but Heavy Storm is going to be able to deal with it. And now there's no back row to protect you from this onslaught from Demok and Kaiku. It's going to set a... Okay, interesting play here. We're going to go set a back row, something that you want to save for your... Well, we saw it's Graceful Charity, so it makes sense. But setting the Graceful as something that obviously you want to keep after this card destruction, and then using card D, even though you know your opponent really doesn't have a lot going on. And this is one of those things, like, I'm a Chaos Turbo player, and I've been playing around with main deck card destruction, and it is a very hard card to know how to use well, I would say. But using it to cash in your opponent's Thunder Dragons is a little bit interesting. We'll see if it plays out, or pays off, I should say. Test ID was rocking Cyberjar, the second Minecon, which I guess is fair to discard. Well, double Minecon. Man, I just use it, right? I don't know. I mean, I guess cashing in with the card D is fine. Estuardo is going to lose the Thunder Dragons we knew about, the Faiths we knew about, and then they had double Nobleman in hand and a Night Assailant. So Night Assailant's going to be able to regrab the Faith. So not the highest impact card destruction you'll ever see. Because your opponent had double Thunder Dragon and Night Assailant plus Flip Monster in hand, so they actually get good value out of getting card destruction here. But if you're Test ID, I can understand pitching in some of the stuff that's not as great when, you know, Cyberjar, when you're rocking a stronger board than your opponent, is not very enticing. And double known Minecon is also not very enticing. So I understand pitching them in. It's just when you know your opponent has at least double Thunder Dragon in hand, plus maybe a Sinister, plus maybe a Night Assailant. Especially because you've seen them not really do much the last couple turns. It's kind of an interesting play, but we will see how it pays off here. Estuardo's going to get a nice full hand of cards here. Test ID drew into a Thunder Dragon of their own, so it does get a Light Engrave, which is pretty solid. Night Assailant, of course, from Estuardo will just regrab that Magician of Faith, the only target engrave. And then the Graceful. Okay, so, yeah, setting that Graceful, using card destruction, Thunder Dragon coming in off the card D, so that you have something to discard for your Graceful. That ended up being pretty solid for Test ID. Really digging for some good stuff. Discard those Thunder Dragons, of course. And then we've got Black Luster Soldier. Is this just going to be game? I mean, you can even, depending on normal summon, right? This is 36. You got 4,600 damage even if you just BLS banish the set, which you might want to do because you know your opponent's on Night Assailant, right? And then almost any monster is game here with your normal summon. Hits a Sangan, yeah, and we can just summon Sork number 2. And there you go. So the card destruction doing its thing. Yeah, just being really aggressive there. Totally. I mean, I guess if you see an opening to potentially go for game with a lot of attack power on board, I mean, you card destruction into... I mean, you already had the Graceful Charity, but you card deed into Thunder Dragon to get a Light Engrave and get you discard fodder for Graceful, and you drew into BLS Sork for a game. That's a pretty insane card destruction. So spinning the slot machine, coming up with 777s there for the game, And what looks like it must just be Chaos Control takes down game one here against what looks like a relatively standard Turbo list here for Estuardo. Now Estuardo gonna get to go first here in game two. We'll see if anyone had any spicy side deck options available to them here that they opt in for. I'm gonna lead out with an Upstart Goblin into a T-set pass. Pretty standard stuff. No Trinity, so you're pretty happy with that if you're Test ID. Test ID's got a Thunder Dragon, so starting off strong with the T-Drag. Oh, but open double Thunder Dragon, so has not going to go up and just has a bunch of dead cards in hand, unfortunately. So bit of a middling roll here from Estuardo with just the Upstart T-set, but a low roll here with Test ID opening double Thunder Dragon, so advantage to Estuardo right out of the gate here. And if you're Estuardo, you're definitely going to look to put pressure on your opponent because you know they have dead cards in hand. Tempo advantage with Estuardo, going to be able to resolve a flip monster first if that's what they let out with. Just going to go ahead and fire off a Graceful Charity first, though. Discarding Gravekeeper Spy and Heavy Storm. That's quite interesting. I mean, I guess I can understand if you don't have Nobleman of Crossout, using Graceful to try to dig for one to start applying maximum pressure could make sense, like I was just saying. But generally, you want to hold Graceful for when you have stuff to discard with, especially in Turbo lists. Like, it's fine just firing off a Graceful in, like, a Warrior deck, where you don't really have much to discard for and just use it for, like, card selection. But Charity is, like, an important card advantage engine for Turbo, because it's got Thunder Dragons, it's got Sinister Serpent, it's got Night Assailants, right? So generally when you're playing Turbo, unless you really need to dig for something right now, or else you'll lose or go really far behind, generally advisable to save your Charity for when you have ways to, get max or more value from it than just discarding the two worst cards in your hand. Now, maybe if you had, like, triple Spy in hand, I could see it doing it here. But they drew into the Thunder Dragon off of the Graceful, which isn't terrible. So both players rocking double Thunder Dragon in their hand. And we're just going to go set a back row pass here for Eduardo, or Estuardo. I feel like I keep calling them Eduardo. But, what can you do? So not flipping this monster here makes me think it could very well just be like a bluff set Sinister Serpent. In which case, I hope they top decked Graceful for turn that time. Because otherwise, I mean, they almost definitely had to have just top deck Graceful if this was the Serpent, because otherwise you're not setting Serpent with Graceful in hand. But either way, Estuardo not using this brief period of tempo advantage to too good of an effect here. They do have a Raigeki break here that they're going to discard a Thunder Dragon for to pop the set monster, which is a little bit interesting because I'm not sure how worried you are about most sets. Like, Spy, probably not the end of the world. Dekoichi probably isn't the end of the world. We don't even know if Test ID is on Dekoichi's. Faith doesn't do anything because they have no spells in grave. So, but let's see what they hit. It's going to be, a Cyberjar. So, yeah, I guess you knew about Cyberjar. So using it here kind of makes sense. But man, what is your set monster here? Either way, Raigeki Break clearing out the Cyberjar. It does set up Chaos for Test ID, which is a little bit scary for Estuardo. But perhaps they have an out for that as well. Test ID just going to go ahead and normal summon Tribe Infecting Virus. So generally a good play if you expect this set to be Gravekeeper Spy, but it probably flips if it's Gravekeeper Spy last turn, right? Just gonna go ahead attack into the set monster. It was a Sangan. So Estuardo choosing not to flip summon their Sangan, potentially signaling that they have... I don't know. I don't really know what that signals, right? Because, like, you'd be like, okay, I want to keep my set monster face down in case my opponent has Nobleman of Crossout. So they wasted on my Sangan, and maybe I have another good flip in hand to use. But Test ID didn't use knock first turn, and they almost will 100% of the time. So not flipping Sangan is a little bit interesting there, I will say. Either way, though, Tribe's going to beat over it, and Sangan will be able to search for Estuardo. I don't know exactly what they're rocking here, but Tsukiyomi comes to mind for me as just a way to clear out the Tribe, for example, if they're running it. Just going to grab a Sinister Serpent here, though. So wishing you had that earlier with the Graceful on board or with the Graceful in hand and the Raigeki break set, but better late than never, I guess. And now Estuardo, you just have an undefended tribe here to deal with, so probably not too difficult. Just going to go ahead and run over it with a Kaiku and shut our opponent out of chaos, so pretty good turn of events here for Estuardo. And we're going to slam down a Chaos Sorcerer as well, just to add in a little bit more damage. Okay, so I guess I'm presuming Estuardo chose to banish the tribe, which is a little bit interesting. Well, I guess you know your opponent is running Demok, right? And if someone's running Dark Magician of Chaos, generally you want to pair that. You know, we saw them just hard summon it by tributing double spy last turn, but that's not the plan A for summoning Demok in most lists, right? The idea is you want to pitch it into the grave with like a Graceful or something, or a discard trap, and then revive it with Premature Burial or Call of the Haunted. So generally when you see Demok, you know your opponent is going to be running revival traps, in which case, even though you give up on a lot of damage here, banishing the tribe with the Sork effect makes a lot of sense. Because then they can't like premature it and decimate your board, right? Both of your monsters here, of course, are spellcasters. So the conservative play, something I like, even if you're giving up a lot of damage here, just because of kind of the intel you have from your opponent's deck from game one. Now the graveyard is completely emptied out here from Test ID. Now you're staring down a lot of damage here for your Test ID as this control deck. We're going to just Mindcon to answer the Sork. Totally fair. Mindcon, steal the Sork, use its effect to banish itself. That's one of those reasons why Mindcon isn't just a worse version of Nobleman of Crossout a lot of the time, right? Because it does answer Chaos pretty handily. So using it to good effect there. And then we're going to fire off this card destruction. This one Test ID the game last time, we'll see if they can roll it as solidly. I mean, both players rocking Double Thunder Dragon in hand. So once again, you know you're helping your opponent cash in some stuff as well. But depending on what Test ID has, otherwise, this could be really strong. They hit their opponent's own card destruction. Okay, well, so, right, we knew about Sinister Serpent as well, right? Man, so this 2 games in a row, Test ID with... now, I am the last person to be an official on what constitutes a good card destruction or not. But my intuition says that when you know your opponent has Double Thunder Dragon plus Sinister Serpent in hand, it's probably not amazing, right? What do I know, though? Well, I guess it was just a single... It was just single Thunder Dragon in hand, but single Thunder Dragon plus Sinister. You end up hitting a couple other things that you didn't know about, which are kind of good, I guess. And you know, they were probably just gonna go ahead and fire with Scar Destruction anyway next turn, right? Test ID, okay. I can understand using it then. You have the knock that's pretty much dead right now. Plus Double Thunder Dragon, plus Sinister of your own, so actually it is probably a little bit better for you, especially when you need to find an answer for this Kaiku, right? So probably the right call to card D here. And now, do you have an answer to this Kaiku is the question. Now, here's the thing, right? If you do not have an answer to the Kaiku, you just discarded Sinister Serpent with a Kaiku on board, and it's just going to come in and banish it next turn. So kind of a Hail Mary play here for the second game in a row with the card D. And we'll see if it works out, honestly. I'm going to go T-set pass and phase MST, pop the set, which was another bluff set knock there. So likely not finding an answer to that Kaiku unless, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of stuff. I mean, Spy can just wall it out, right? But you haven't seen knock or Mindcon from your opponent yet, so decent chance that they have something to answer this set with. And this Kaiku is just going to have you in for a world of hurt once it banishes your Sinister. And Estuardo, we'll see if they drew something good off this card D. They get to recur their own Sinister. We'll see if Test ID is allowed to do the same. Got Nobleman, yeah, man, oof. The tale of 2 card destructions so far this match. Plus Duo, oof. Oof, it hurts. Yeah, you just got completely blown out of the water there for your Test ID. Oh, man, so game 1, card destruction, spinning that slot machine, like I said, rolling 777s, getting the OTK potential with BLS, Sork, all the good stuff. Game 2, Not working out too much. Unable to find an answer to the Kaiku that was staring you down, and you drew your opponent into duo, knock, good stuff, essentially. And we're going to head on to game 3 here. Silver lining for Test ID is that they do get to go first in this game 3. Just going to lead out with a set back row pass. So neither player with any like crazy strong multiple Trinity openings so far this game, or so far this match, I should say. Unless Estuardo here drew the nuts. I'm just going to get a T-set pass. Test ID, interestingly, we haven't seen any like scapegoats or anything out of them. No like scapegoat meta stuff. But we have seen Decree plus DMOC. So it's not really clear to me what deck they're running here. They do have Thunder Dragon coming out. They're going to go set a monster pass with no answer to Estuardo's. Jar will draw Estuardo a little bit deeper. Into knock to banish Sinister Serpent. Okay, so nice to deal with that early. But potentially Test ID baiting out some set monster interaction, which could be good if you've got some other stuff in hand, like a spy that you want to resolve. Estuardo, once again, not flipping up their set monster, which we saw them not flip up Sangan in a similar spot last game, so it definitely could be that. But I would prefer, if it's Sangan, flip some and start getting in for 1,000 a turn, right? So really makes me think it's Sinister, probably. But I was wrong last game, so we'll see. Test ID with a little bit of extra knowledge. Just going to set another monster. You baited out a knock. Are you going to go ahead and play a real set monster now? Presumably a spy. We'll see. Estuardo, we've got MST on the back row. Definitely is chainable. Yeah, okay, so we finally see the scapegoat. There we go. So definitely just a chaos control list out here from Test ID. One of the DMOC versions, which has kind of fallen out of favor, but DMOC is such a cool card. You can't really fault anyone for playing it. And Estuardo making an interesting play, choosing to use MST on something that could potentially be chained. But maybe the idea is you're going to try and make a push here. So you want to clear out the back row. So we'll see if they have some sort of offensive play to make up for the fact that they basically just got -1'd. Minecon on the set monster. Steals a Magician of Faith, which is quite nice. You don't really have anything amazing to grab. Then again, neither does your opponent. So not the highest impact Faith here. Interesting of Test ID to set it with just the scapegoat to be used. But gotta do what you gotta do. So I was correct in they set the Serpent to bait out the knock and saying, okay, less likely you have more set monster interaction. Estuardo did have the Minecon, but it's not the end of the world. If you're Estuardo, you probably just re-grab the Minecon, is my guess. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the knock, though. Yeah, I mean, no knock is less... You get into less weird mind games with known noblemen, because, like, even if your opponent bluff sets something to bait out the knock, like we saw already, it at least still banishes it. Like, knocking a Sinister is totally fine, right? Then they just don't have Sinister, right? It's not knocking a Magician of Faith or a Gravekeeper Spy, but it's not bad, like actively bad, like mind controlling a Sinister Serpent, right? So you basically got to choose between knock, which is kind of avoids the mind games. Of course, your opponent can play around it by baiting it out, but at least you'll answer it, like I just said. Whereas Mindcon, that's like straight mind game territory where, like, will they set something that loses to Mindcon or not? But you give up the ability to answer chaos monsters that knock can't, like we saw last game. The other option, of course, was MST, but going for the set interaction, I think, makes sense here anyway. And then Estuardo, just going to set a back row pass. Still not flipping up their set monster. I'm thinking it's Sinister more every day now. Test ID. We're just going to go Faith Tribute for Thunder Dragon. Start getting some damage in. Notably, Test ID is goat locked here. That was one of the benefits of the MST on the Scapegoat. It's not like a pure -1 because A, the goats aren't really here to get you value anyway. But you also shut your opponent off from summoning any more monsters without tributing or something like this. But T-Drag will come in, gonna go attack the set monster. Show me the Sinister Serpent. It is! Hurrah! There we go. Cool. Estuardo will just be able to recur that right now and has the option to wall out this T-Drag indefinitely. Now, you could have gone for the play last turn if you wanted. Although, there is value to having your opponent being goat locked, but Serpent, even though it only has 300 attack, is still useful for dealing with goat tokens, but choosing to keep the opponent goat locked, which I think makes total sense, limit their options. Upstart here, dig a little bit further into Heavy Storm to clear out the back row, so last time they did that, they MST'd into a chainable card just to set up a Minecon on a Faith, which is, like, fine. Do you have another play here, or are we just firing off all of our back row removal without really anything to do? Hits a Heavy Storm. Okay, so heavy into heavy. Now, neither player has to worry about that unless there's some Magician of Faith shenanigans down the road. But Estuardo at least not going negative off of that play this time. And now, once again, the back row is clear for you to start making some plays. Kaiku is a good one. Heavy clearing the way for Kaiku to attack is a classic 1-2 punch. Kaiku will attack over the T-Drag and can banish Faith and the other T-Drag. So not taking your opponents off of lights, but the Floodgate effect is still live, and you get some advantage by killing the Thunder Dragon that was on board. Back row to potentially protect the Kaiku as well. And test ID, you've just got these goat tokens between you and your opponent's Kaiku now. But those will definitely buy you some time, which is the point of running it, of course. We're going to get a standby face trap dust shoot here. Let's go reveal those hands. Test ID, hand is Known Thunder Dragon, Double Kaiku, Spicy, Tribe Infecting Virus, Premature Burial without any crazy targets, but the suspected Premature that we could very easily guess was in the deck is confirmed to be true. And then we see a Decree, which really hasn't gotten too much action so far this match, but good card against Turbo in general. So if you are Estuardo's hand, we've got Sinister, Faith, Knock, and Sork. So Sork nowhere near live, but you do have a Light and Dark at least available to you. And so what do you put back here? Kaiku trades with your Kaiku, which is annoying, but it does get you a Dark Engrave. Tribe does not. Tribe discard T-Drag will clear out your Kaiku for free, and you don't really have a great answer to that, right? You'd have to, like... I mean, you could just set Faith in the way. There's no knock, so Faith will probably hit the grave. You'll get Chaos live, and you can banish it, which doesn't seem terrible. And at least that way, like at that point, your opponent wouldn't have summoned a Kaiku, right? So I think you send back a Kaiku, right? Because if they crash them, they're not guaranteed to have the room to summon the other one if they go for the tribe play, right? So you can use the goat lock to your advantage here by sending back a Kaiku. Whereas if you send back tribe, they can crash Kaikus and they have another one, and that'll prevent you from summoning your Sork. So I think you send back a Kaiku here. I'm gonna send back the tribe though. Okay. What do I know? And I mean, definitely not a bad play by any stretch. Getting rid of tribe is totally fine. I just think getting rid of a Kaiku makes it more likely that your Sork will be live in the future, which I think is pretty important here. So yeah, sending back the tribe, test ID will just be able to summon Kaiku, crash them, and then set probably the Decree. And now have another Kaiku in hand you have to deal with if you're Estuardo, and you're pretty far. You can't just summon your Sork this turn. So Estuardo going T-set pass. Okay, so one thing I forgot to talk about earlier as well is, like, this is probably all of the back row removal you have in your deck if you're Estuardo. So firing off your MST and heavy, like, you want to save at least one of these for Decree, probably, right? So just, like, randomly firing them off when you aren't sure if it's Decree or not. And when, like, especially when they went with the MST, like, I can understand heavying a couple turns ago to set up for normal summon Kaiku, beat over the Thunder Dragon, right? Because connecting with Kaiku is really valuable, so it's fine expending heavy to do that, right? You didn't really have any reason I mean, maybe you had the Kaiku in hand and MST in the back row and getting goats on board ended up kind of foiling your plan, right? But like you pretty much know you're up against Chaos Control. Test ID's turn one play was set a back row pass, which just screams scapegoat to me, right? Like that's the Chaos Control like patented opening, right? So you got to be really, really like it's very likely that that set was scapegoat. So your MST into summon Kaiku play was probably never going to work. And now, even if that heavy storm play was good a couple turns ago, you've basically gotten rid of all of your back row to deal with Decree, right? Like you really just have Breaker left in your deck, maybe Dust Tornado if you sided into it, but that's pretty unlikely. And like depending on the way things play out, Decree can just negate the tornado anyway. And now Test ID has a pretty much free Decree on board, and Turbo runs a lot of traps. You might even have one set right now. So potentially some earlier misplays in this game that could come back to bite Estuardo here. But we'll see if it matters. We'll see if it matters. Just going to go ahead and set that monster pass. In phase Decree, right? Turning off potential traps. You knew about that, so setting a trap into Decree here is a little bit interesting, but what else are you going to do with it, I guess? And now this other Kaiku's going to come down. Yeah, it'll beat over your Faith, and you'll get a Light Engrave, but like I predicted, you'll be able to summon your Sork even though you have Chaos Live because there's a Kaiku on board. Whereas if you sent back Tribe, one of the Kaikus would be dead, and the other one would be... I mean, if you sent back one of the Kaikus, they'd be summoning probably Tribe this turn, and things would be fine, right? At least that's my thought. Even worse, because they have Knock. Well, that's really unfortunate, so it ends up kind of being a moot point because you wouldn't have been able to summon your Sork anyway. Yeah, this is really bad. Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. So not the end of the world. I mean, Kaiku is still a thing, right? Knock on the Sangan, so Estuardo keeps their Faith active with some good stuff in the grave to grab. And they could end up answering this Decree with, heavier MST, of course, right? But the Knock is going to banish Sangan and clear the way for the Kaiku. Decree's on board, so the only thing that can stop this attack is if you side it into your own scapegoats or if you have Book of Moon. But now Kaiku can hit in, and now Faith hitting Grave doesn't really matter anyway because now you're off Darks. And this could have been a Tribe Infecting Virus, right? Or a Tribe could still be on the board and they are goat locked, right? So that's the issue with leaving double Kaiku. Not to harp on the point, but so Estuardo here, yeah, just have to set stuff in the way of this Kaiku. Still have that Faith kicking around, but still a lot of other cards that could be, of course, as well. Test ID draw pass, not attacking into the set is kind of an interesting play when you have Decree on board and you don't have to worry about anything. Kind of odd, because like you wanna, if it's like Dekoichi or something, you don't want him to be able to like flip it, right? Set a monster, set a back row pass. So what does that make? Okay, well I guess we knew about Sinister in hand. So when Sinister doesn't flip, or when this card doesn't flip, you basically know it's Sinister. This other one I think we probably know is Faith, but Test ID isn't going to know that. But Test ID can be pretty certain that this card is Faith, right? Or this card is Sinister, I should say. We're going to go Tribute for Thunder Dragon, and then Metamorphosis into Ryu Senshi. This is a big play. Or not into Ryu Senshi, into Dark Balter the Terrible. Dark Balter, importantly, not only does it negate spell cards, normal spells, which now you've got Decree plus Dark Balter, which is the super duper control wombo combo, right? With 8,000 life points to use it, so you basically have infinite spell card negates. But Dark Balter also negates the effects of effect monsters that it destroys in battle. So not only will it negate flip monsters like the presumed Faith that it can run over, it also prevents Sinister Serpent's effect from recurring it back to your hand. It doesn't matter where the serpent ends up; its effect is negated, even if it's in the grave, if it gets killed by Dark Balter. So interesting play here. Tribute for T-Drag to get a level 5 out to meta into Dark Balter. But I think this really just blows up Estuardo's board, and now you've got the Decree Dark Balter combo to really shut down most forms of interaction from Estuardo. They don't have Chaos as a way to out this, right? So really, the only way you out this with as Estuardo is you need like Snatch Steal, right? You need like exactly Snatch Steal. You need to play the long game and set up a Chaos Engrave, even though most of your darks are gone. You need to spy to wall at the Dark Balter, or you need this second set to be Knight Assailant and have the Dark Balter attack the Serpent this turn. Or I mean, you could also have like Book of Moon, but we haven't seen that yet. Yeah, Dark Balter will attack the new set, which was that Magician Faith that we knew about, but Test ID did not. So you get a little bit closer to setting up Chaos here if you're Estuardo. But Dark Balter getting tons and tons of value here. Estuardo, oh, whoa, okay. So it didn't flip, and they chose to not flip it when the Kaiku was on board. So I just got completely baited, thinking that that was Sinister. Okay. Nice little misdirect here. Knight Assailant's going to be able to flip and pop the Dark Balter. Unless they had Sinister this game, right? Yeah, we knew it from forever ago, right? But Knight Assailant will be able to flip and pop the Dark Balter. So one of the very, very few outs in the deck is going to be able to come through for Estuardo. Kill the Dark Balter. You're still... I mean, now you're actually just up a million cards, right? Because these, Tribute for Thunder Dragon into Metamorphosis, like, that's a huge investment. Trying to set up the crazy Wombo combo, but getting outed by one of the few things and, man, baiting the opponent into thinking that that's a Sinister. I don't know if that's intentional or not from Estuardo, right? Because, like, Test ID can probably be... Like, you're very certain that that was a Sinister there, right? I think. So attacking the new set monster makes sense, right? But then it ends up being Knight Assailant. That's crazy. Wow. And now you're actually just up a ton of cards here if you're Estuardo, right? I mean, Decree can be getting you a lot of virtual card advantage by potentially shutting off traps. But man, that Knight Assailant went crazy. Whew. We're gonna add a set monster pass here. Test ID. Thought you had it in the bag, but now you've got a lot of uphill fighting to do. Okay, well, there you go. BLS backed up by Decree is a pretty good follow-up to your Dark Balter getting Knight Assailanted. And playing really well under this Goat Lock, right? You got one free monster space to use. But you've used it to great effect, right? You've got Kaiku's out, you've gotten Dark Balter, you've gotten BLS. Now, interestingly, Test ID using the meta on their Thunder Dragon to go for the Dark Balter play instead of just going for like a Thousand Eyes Restrict play. But it's probably going to work out here. BLS can go ahead and banish the set monster, which is Magician of Faith. This does lose to Tsukuyomi, but banishing the Faith is quite good, I would say. I'm just going to pass there. So Estuardo, you need Snatch Steal, you need Tsukuyomi, you need another Mind Con maybe. Otherwise, BLS is going to start doing some stuff. Set probably Sinister here, right? But Test ID, you got to be wary about another Knight Assailant, of course. So you probably just banish that one and then lose to Tsukuyomi. Yeah, so you banish the Sinister. Oh, man. What a card. Baited myself. But yeah, BLS getting tons of value here. Coming down, even though you were down on cards, but now you're just plussing like crazy and asserting your dominance over the board again. Estuardo, you need Tsukuyomi. Show me it. Nope, draw pass. BLS is not long, or Knight Assailant is not long for this world, sorry. Still banishing. Oh, okay, interesting. So we're going to go BLS banish our own token to set up for Chaos Sorcerer to banish my opponent's Knight Assailant. And now you're setting up for near lethal next turn. Decree is protecting your monsters. Knight Assailant getting banished is important because otherwise that could be a Dark Engrave for Estuardo if they would like tribute summoned or you just chose to beat over it or something. We're going to set a couple back row pass. Estuardo, you need Snatch Steal, basically. Yeah. And Test ID smartly, you can probably assume that you haven't seen any chaos out of your opponent yet. So good chance that they have some chaos in hand that your Kaikus have been keeping them off of. Plus banishing these makes sense. And then smartly putting their chaos monsters in defense position so Estuardo can't crash into them with, say, like a Spy or a Dakoichi or something to get a Dark Engrave, right? That's why oftentimes you'll see Chaos Turbo players summon their Mons in defense, even if the stats are weaker, because it prevents opponents, or it gives your opponent one less way of getting a light or a dark or whatever they need into the grave. And Estuardo's just going to have to draw a pass. Test ID, we're going to Sork banish another goat token. BLS plus Breaker the Magical Warrior for 5,900 damage. Nice. Or 4,900, I should say. And now you're passing with lethal on board. Main phase 2, Breaker will pop one of the sets. Is the Raigeki break, which Estuardo set into known decree. The first card was also set into known decree as well, but potentially you could have outplayed the decree earlier if Test ID didn't just shotgun it ASAP. But once again, when you had already used heavy and you've already used MST, there's like no risk to Test ID just shotgunning that decree before. Even when like the value maxing play of decree is wait until your opponent has multiple cards set so you can just get like a free +1 essentially. But no reason to wait really there because you knew that there was no outs to it left in the deck most likely. So totally fine. And it plays around potential Dust Tornado if that's what this set is. Estuardo back up against the wall. Yeah, they're talking over the game, which is totally fair. Test ID giving some advice. Graceful Charity is a good way to potentially find an out. You can get a Dark Engrave to banish some stuff. You can even get 2 Darks Engrave, maybe. We're going to discard Knight Assailant plus Dakoichi. Knight Assailant effect can trigger to bounce that Dakoichi back to hand, and you've set up Chaos at least. Could be crazy to go BLS, attack over Sork, and opponent BLS. Thunder Dragon. Oh, okay, give me double Chaos. Give me double Chaos. Let's do it. 1, Sork. Sork banish BLS. Double Chaos. Sork banish other Sork. Are we just going to win? Holy, they were... Estuardo was talking like the game was already over, and they drew into Graceful, into Knight Assailant, into Thunder Dragon, or double Sork banish both of my opponent's Chaos monsters, and now you've almost stabilized. Set a monster, set a back row pass. Have they completely just turned this on its head? Test ID. Suddenly you're behind when you were just sitting pretty before. Some of the best cards in your deck are gone already. Holy! Breaker attack the set monster. It's a Magician of Faith. They run 3 Faiths as well? Or is that just the second one? I could have sworn we already saw 2 Faiths this game. I guess I just don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, right. The Knight Assailant just bounced the Faith back. Silly, silly me. Faith can grab Graceful. Faith can grab... Heavy is good. Heavy Storm to clear out the decree. Holy! The greatest Graceful Charity of all time. Tsukuyomi to set the Breaker to protect it from Sork banishes to force your opponent to potentially attack into stuff, but there's no Mirror Force to play around because Decree is on the board, so that doesn't really matter too much. Man, and Estuardo just completely turned this one around. Yeah, Sork clear out the goat tokens, knock on the Breaker, that's cute. Set a monster pass. Test ID. Set a monster pass. Heavy Storm that we knew was coming to blow out the back row. Premature. Without really any good targets, but we knew about that for a long time. Double Decree set here for Test ID, so not a ton of action. Heavy hits their own Raigeki break, which who cares? And is this just the greatest reversal of all time? Flip summon Gravekeeper Spy, grab another Spy in defense position, turn some Sorks to attack position. No, we're going to tribute set for Thunder Dragon to get a Dark Engrave, to go for BLS, to go for game. Ah! Oh my lord. What a comeback. Oh, it was Spirit Reaper. That's cute. Doesn't really matter. And then the Sorks are coming in, 4,600 a turn. What a crazy turnaround off that Graceful Charity. And yeah, you lose to Snatch Steal as Tordo. Yeah, show me the Snatch. Show me the Snatch. No! Oh man. What an absolute comeback. What a roller coaster of a match. Let's see what both players had. Double Sork in hand for Test ID with all the lights in the deck basically gone. Oh man, what a comeback. What a crazy match. And Estardo takes it down. They had themselves dead to rights, asking for advice on how they could have played better. And then they just drew Graceful and went off and won the game. Wow. Crazy. What a game. This is why we love GOAT format. Crazy back and forth long matches like this. Chaos Turbo versus Chaos Control. Man, such good stuff. So many interesting decision points for both players, I think, this match. Definitely one that could be fun to go back and rewatch and see where both players could have, done things a little bit differently to see how different things would have panned out. But man, as a neutral observer, that was just a really fun one. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. But there you go. We have it. 2-1. Estuardo Escoto on Chaos Turbo takes it down over Test ID 69 on Chaos Control. Crazy match. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will catch you all next time.